Hey guys, wait until I figure this out because I don't know what I'm doing. uh, where's the webcam? Why is it on the wrong webcam? No. Okay, I think I have to reset. Give me grace and space. We're gonna reset this baby so I could flip the webcam around because unless someone knows, does someone know how to do it where I don't have to actually turn it off? Because I don't know what I'm doing. Okay, so you can hear and you can see me, but I want to be seen there. So I've got two cams. I've got this. There's one here, right? And then there's another one, which is easier for me. Unless, well, actually, I guess I can reorient myself. I wanted to do it the other side, but in a spirit of ease, we're just going to turn around. We're going to do that. We're going to turn around. And then switch the screens around. Okay. Hey! Okay. All right. Jazz hands. Jazz hands. So here's the thing. This is actually the first live. This is the inaugural live. I actually haven't gone live before, but I was sitting on the couch and I felt called to do that. And so I figured maybe we can start with a Q&A. And if things start streaming in and I start downloading, then I can also give you guys some fun, juicy details as well. I am. So glad to be here for this historic moment. Is that what it is? Merry Christmas. If you celebrate Christmas, Merry Christmas. Happy Christmas. Part of the reason why I sort of felt called to go live was just I was thinking about it and then realized for a lot of people, it's like not a merry time right now. It's not a happy time. It's super stressful right now. And people need like camaraderie and community, and they just like need a space where they can just get away from everything that's going on. And so I'm trying to be mindful of that because everyone has their own journey, you know? But if it's not Christmas, you know, what are the other ones? Kwanzaa, Hanukkah. Am I missing any? Or just happy holidays. We could just leave it there. Hello. Hi, guys. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So someone hit me with the question and then we'll go if you've got anything for me. So we're just going to do a Q&A. Yeah, just go for it. There's no structure to this. I don't know what I'm doing, right? So like, just go for it. How was the wedding? So here's the thing. So it was funny. And the reason why it was funny is because there wasn't like a wedding. We went to the justice of the peace. It was actually one of those things where we knew that we were going to get married by the end of the year. We just didn't know what date and like what that's going to look like, right? Like we're one of those like 90-day fiance couples. And so it's a really weird situation because when you're dealing with things like immigration, sometimes things are not in your control, right? And that can be like when the date is, like you can plan for a date, but if immigration is like dragging their feet, or if they're like, no, we're actually going to reject your visa today, right? It doesn't allow a whole lot of room for you to just sort of like be creative and like plan a wedding. And so it's one of those things where like you move off of faith and the love that you have for each other, and you learn to step out of the process and let the process be the process, right? So that's where we were. We knew we were getting married. We just didn't know when we could legally, right? But then once we got the green light to like legally get married, because you have to wait almost like for permission to do it, right? then that was like when my mother came through. For those of you that are new, like I always said, she's dead, but she visits. Okay. And then so she was like, hey, like, I would still like to walk you down the aisle. And so I was like, okay. And then it just happened to be her birthday, which was this past Thursday, actually. And so we were like, oh my God, let's go. Let's do it. Right. And then so we went to the Justice of the Peace. And that was a really interesting experience because there, the way the courthouse was that we went to, it's like a group wedding. So all the couples come, you get your license, like your marriage license. They send you up to like a courtroom. And then it's like a group wedding where you like recite your vows. But it was nice because the judge that we had that was doing it, she had a sense of humor. And she had a way of being like, obviously this wasn't your first choice. So like, let's just play with this, right? Like, let's love each other like through this process, but like, let's not make it like worse than like what it is in terms of it being the Justice of the Peace. And so we got married in a group with, it was 1, 2, 3, there was 5 of us total, like 5 couples. And like you all stand there and you hold each other's hands and like at 5 couples reciting the vows like at the same time. But it was cool to sort of be in that moment with other people, because you look around and it's just like other people that are like, you know what? Like, I love you. Like, we don't need to do all of that, but we're still going to be together. And it was just like nice being in a room like that. So that was how it was. But yeah, super. I think it's a story. I think it's one of those things that like, if I have grandkids and they're like, grandma, like, what, like, tell me about it. I'm going to be like, girl, like, let me, like, well, you know, we may have a ceremony at a different point in time. I'm not really sure, like when everything sort of calms down and settles, or we may be over the whole idea of a pomp and circumstance anyway. I don't know. We're just going to sort of like play it out, see how we feel about it. So, are the questions personal or general? I don't care. They can be both. They can be both. Yes, I have one. How do you talk to your spirit guides? Can you speak to them through thoughts or like out loud? Oh, she's got a boulder on her finger. Well, look, if there wasn't a wedding, it was going to be something. Okay. I'm leaving here with something. Okay. I'm leaving with something. For spirit guides, can you speak to them through your thoughts or out loud? It's both. It's just how you want to talk to them. When I am around other people, I speak to them through thoughts because I don't want people looking at me crazy. But when I'm just like home, especially if I'm by myself, it's like how I'm talking to you right now, out loud. Like, yo, like, I got a question. Or like, Mom, can you come here for a minute? And then she's like, what? What do you want? Right? Jeremy, get down here, which is my main guide, right? I talk to them like as if I'm talking to you. But you can also talk in thought form, and you can talk in and like a thought form is just like, it's just thinking, right? Passing thoughts back and forth, a thought form. Some guides though also communicate in feeling. So like sort of passing an emotion back and forth. So like you can like communicate and then go from a stage of feeling neutral to then suddenly feeling like happy, right? For no reason. Right. So they can pass like feelings back and forth. Some guides don't actually talk at all. Like at all. Like they don't talk through thought form or anything like that. I have actually one time came across somebody else's guide when I was doing a reading for someone, and their guide was a monk, and it seemed like he was still in his vow of silence. It was really interesting. And he would not talk. He would just not say, he wouldn't say any words. But one thing that he would do, he would point. So you want to make your honey, hey, honey, look, you know they love you on YouTube. Don't run away. He got scared again. Yeah, but some of them like will point, you know. There are also some guides that just do, or they will show you how to do, like they don't speak words, but they'll do this like charade kind of thing where they're like motions and they're like acting things out, but they don't actually say words or communicate through thought forms at all. And so it really just is dependent on the guide itself. And the reason for that is because like guides are spirits, but they're spirits with personalities. And the reason why they're like that is because they used to be incarnate. And so sometimes they carry on like like a projection of what they were in a previous lifetime that they liked, not necessarily the most previous lifetime. But if there's like a way they like to do things, they may carry that because it may be a preference. And so like in the process of like getting to know your guide, it may be a situation where you like just learn their communication preferences and then you just talk to them that way. Like spirit guides, like that's like a relationship and it's a lifelong relationship. Your main guide typically is assigned to you for life. Now they can trade out here and there, but you usually will have one that's with you the whole time. And so you are building a relationship, you're building a rapport with them, right? On the flip side, there are guides that have like crazy sense of humor and they crack jokes and they poke fun. It just depends on which one you've got. So I would say don't limit yourself like when it comes to like how you're receiving messages or how you're communicating with them. If you are trying to talk and you realize it's just not working or they just don't seem to like talking, try a different method. You can try something like automatic writing, where you just kind of go into a meditative state, sit down with a notebook and a pen, and then just be open and like set the intention that you're open to whatever they have to say to you. And those messages can flow out through the pen without judgment. You can set an intention like, hey, when I go to sleep at night, I'd love to receive some of your messages. I would love to chat with you. You know what I mean? And maybe if they don't talk, they will just communicate in symbols in your dreams or something. So just be like super open with how you communicate with them, because we have to remember that we are working with the laws of metaphysics. It's not going to follow the same logic that like Earth follows, right? In like Earth logic, you speak to somebody, you say words, someone says words back, right? That's like not the case with that. So just like keep that in mind. Like think about it like when you look at like animals, right? Like a dog from California can go to New Zealand and then communicate with another dog, right? Like language itself is one of the most inefficient forms of communication that can exist. And so they may not use it. So yeah, hope that helps. My parents are anyone's like that. Funny enough, my dad is an immigrant. Is he really? He's an immigrant. Where's your dad from? That's so cool. My dad is also an immigrant as well. Let's see. Okay, so we got Akashic records. Do you read them? If so, how do you learn? Okay, and also spirit guides. Do spirit guides have? Let's do the spirit guides ones first, so we're not hopping all around. Do you think some people have? So okay, so let's do So, do spirit guides have a certain color that they can? So they can appear as a color. They can. My main guide, his color is yellow, actually. So they can, and it could also sometimes it's frequency that you're perceiving. Right? Like spirit have a tendency, and this is all of them. This is even like with working with ancestors, if you are doing mediumship or something like that. They project themselves to you in the way that they feel the most comfortable and the most free. Right? So for example, I've done readings with people, and let's say they've had a grandmother pass, right? And when I see the grandmother, she's young again. She's young, she's hip, her hair is done, her makeup is done. And so I will then start trying to describe the person that I'm seeing to the person. And then they're like, no, when I knew her, she was old and she was sick and like she was bedridden. And when you go back to spirit, why would you still want to be sick or old or bedridden? You wouldn't. You go back to the part of yourself that you felt the most free. And so they have a tendency to portray themselves in that kind of way, or portray themselves in a way where they feel the most powerful, right? And so when you're thinking about color is just a spectrum of light, and light moves quickly, right? And so it could just be a way that they prefer to travel. And so, yeah, they can come across as light. And then also light too can also be people, spirits that are more of like the angelic frequency. Some people work with archangels. They can be like an archangel or something like that, like a more angelic frequency like that. But yes, that can be a thing. Okay. Let's go. Cherry, I see your Akashic records. I'm going to go in a way that my brain makes sense for like questions so I don't lose my train of thought. Um, and then, okay, so Chris, you said, as a kid, I knew an old Chinese man was around me. Was this real? Who was he? Well, do you think it was real? Right? I can't, I can't tell you that. That's something that's up for you to decide. But I will say that I, as a kid, also had a man that was around me often, and a man that would regularly pop up in my dreams as a child. And I just thought it was a dream. I didn't think too much of it. It wasn't until I was 20 where all my stuff kind of kicked in, where I was like, oh, that's why you're around me. It's a guide, right? And so now it's the same man who's still always around me, but now I understand the capacity in which he's around me. But in terms of like, for you, was this real? That's something that you would have to ask yourself. I would say, I would think he was. I think kids are so interesting, and like the child experience is so interesting because not all of those imaginary friends are imaginary friends, if you get my drift. So you never saw him, you felt him. Yeah. I would say he was, but I would also that, but it's also your reality too. So that's something that you would have to decide for yourself. Okay, let's go back. You wanted Cherry Blossom. Can we talk about Akashic records? Do you read them? And if so, how do you learn? I don't read other people's Akashics. I know my Akashics, and there's actually a book. Where is it? Where I don't have it here. I'm gonna do a quick Google, and then I'm gonna pop it in the chat for you, because there is a book that I learned how to do it with that was actually really helpful. So I'm going to pop it in the chat. And then, you deal with that information what you will. If I can find it on Amazon. Where is it? It's not on Amazon. It's not. Is it this one? Oh, great. Found it. Haha. There you go. There's a book. So this was the one that I used, and I found it really helpful. It sort of broke down like there's like an Akashic opening prayer that you need to like open up the records. It broke down what you see when you're in the records. Because like when you get into the records, and I've only been into mine, right? Which is actually interesting enough, how I found out that the man that I saw growing up was my guide. I found that out by actually going into my Akashic records, and I went through this book. I did the meditation, and I had to do it a couple of times. It wasn't like I got it the first time. So it was like 2-3 times before I was like, oh, finally I'm in there. Right. But there are like, what are the word? Not guides, but like protectors or like guardians. There are like guardians of records that are in the records. And you'll see them too, like when you do your meditation and like you go through them, and they like protect the records and they like let you through and whatever. But like mine was really interesting that like when I went through the whole journey and I like finally got in there, and like for me, my record was behind like a door. And so when I opened the door opens from being like this kind of like ancient Hogwartsy library vibe. At least that was my experience. And when I opened the door, I was immediately on a pebble beach, and the water was so blue and so serene and so calm. And it was like this pebble beach, and nobody was on the beach. And so I walked through the door, and I'm walking down the beach, and I see this man, and he's like well at the end of the beach, but I'm like, who is this man and why is he in my record? And his back was facing me, so I didn't see his face. And so I walked down the beach, and I walked up to the man, and I tapped him, and he turned around, and it was the face. It was the man that I had been seeing since I was a kid. And then I was like, holy crap. And he was like, yeah. And it was one of those sort of that Spider-Man meme when everyone's looking at each other type thing. It was that kind of situation. So, and then that was when I learned that that was who he was. So, yeah. But outside of that, I haven't tried to go through other people's records. I think mostly because I don't know. I just feel like it's a personal journey. And then also another skill that I have to learn that I don't really feel like learning right now. I gotta be honest. I'm tired. I'm tired. Let's see. What else do we got? So, and I'm gonna skip around. So, Karen, I see yours, but so we can round out the spirit guide one. So, how can I be sure? Lalima says, "How can I be sure? How can I understand what my guides are trying to say, and be sure?" So, my question to you, if you're still in here, is, what do you mean by be sure? So, is it that you're picking it up, but then you're like, nah, that can't be it? Is that what's happening? And then so you're doubting what it is that you're receiving. You know, you can ask your guides to communicate with you in a way that confirms information. So, my agreement with my spirit team is if I don't get it the first time, send it in threes. And then by the third time, then I'll like, okay, fine, that's what you're trying to say. So send the message in threes, and the threes can be maybe they say it, or maybe I have a dream about it. Then I wake up, and then I get a phone call from a friend, and then they say something that I heard in the dream, right? And then maybe I'm in the car driving, and then I look at a billboard, and then the billboard repeats it, right? So I say to my spirit team, give it to me in threes if I miss it the first time. So you can figure out the way that you feel like it'll be best for you to receive it. Do you want to see a rainbow, right? Because one thing about rainbows is that they happen without rain, right? So like that's the thing, like with my spirit team too. Like if I'm really not getting it, they'll show me a rainbow and it didn't rain for days. And so, figure out how it would click for you, like what you want your confirmation to be, and then you can have an agreement with them that that's what you want, and then they'll work with that. Wait a minute, you have a doll that Panda. Wait a minute, this sounds like a horror movie. You have a childhood doll that shows up in your dreams as a humanoid every few years. I used to be afraid of her. She's an uncanny face until I realized who she was about. Well, who the hell is she? A doll? Ah, man, you're more involved than me. That's when I burned the house down. A Raggedy Ann? Oh, girl. No, I called you girl. I don't know if you are one. But that's that. We're not doing that. No, no, no. And do you still have the doll? Did you get rid of the doll? No. See, for me, you still have the doll. Wow. All right, more power to you. More power to you. Sincerely yours, Nadia. Oh my gosh, caught you live, beloved. You started my journey in a tarot and spiritual journey. Thank you for that. No, honestly, thank you. Like, thank you for listening to me. You didn't have to do that, And also, I appreciate the sentiment, but you started your journey, right? It's the journey of truth, and that's it for everybody, right? When someone is ready to find their truth, journey their truth, explore that for themselves, then that's when you start it for yourself. That's all you. That's all personal power. Okay, let's go back up. So, Karen, do you think some people don't have a soul, i.e., narcissists, sociopaths? Do they latch onto people with a light, with souls to tap into their inner power or connection to the divine? So the soul thing is interesting because it's like, what is a soul? Like there are times when I think I have a pretty good understanding of it, and then there's a time where I go into like this massive existential moment where I'm like, actually, Do I have like the right understanding of that? And so, but what I do think is that there are people walking around that are just spirits, right? That not everyone is a people, right? Not everyone is a person. That sometimes you are dealing with just spirits, right? And and I'm wondering if that's the same thing. I'm actually not sure, to be quite honest with you. But in terms of like, do they latch on to people with light? I don't think so. I think that they latch on to people that are mirroring them. I think when you're dealing with like a narcissist or like a sociopath, a person with light is annoying because a person of light is going to challenge you to then go find your light, right? A person with light is going to challenge you to find your truth, to grow, to heal, to do all these things that a narcissist and a sociopath, they don't want to do. That it doesn't work for them. It doesn't work for their narrative, their paradigm, and a life that they're living. And so I think that they have a tendency to attract and be attracted to their mirrors, or at least like mirror shards, right? Because these people really at the end of the day have really low levels of self-esteem, right? They're heavily insecure. A lot of them can be, and obviously this is a huge massive generalization. This isn't like all of them, right? And so what happens is the mirror is someone of the same, right? A mirror is somebody else that's also struggling with self-esteem and being secure in who they are and self-worth. And so I think those people, they mirror each other and then they attract each other into each other's life. Because a person that's working on themselves, their journey, looking for their light, those things they're just not compatible. Now, I do think that you can be a mirror and then also have light, right? Two things can be true at the same time. But I don't necessarily think that they are like latching on to light. Light is exhausting. Like all of you are on this journey. This is an exhausting journey, like learning how to love yourself, learning who you are, learning how to transcend, learning how to be better, healing, combing through your trauma, right? Feeling your pain. Like that's exhausting. I don't really see why they would want to do that personally. I mean, I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't want to do that at all, actually. So in my opinion, I would say no. I think it's a mirror thing, not specifically a light thing. But you can be a mirror and then also have light too. So, mm. Music Hour says, "Do you have any advice about connecting with ancestors if you're adopted with connection to your bloodline?" I keep getting messages saying to do that. Okay, if you're adopted with connection to your bloodline. So one thing about ancestors, right? They're not just part of the bloodline. An ancestor can also be a best friend, right? They are part of the soul group. And you are incarnating all the time as different roles all the time. So for example, you can have one lifetime and like let's say there's this one soul and that soul plays your father, right? And then you incarnate in a different lifetime and then that soul shows up and then that person is maybe like a boss to you, right? Still an authoritative figure, but now they're playing it in the role of a boss as opposed to playing it in the role as a father. However, they're still in the emperor energy. And so because of this, we think that ancestors are just bloodline, but they can also be sort of anyone that has that kind of tie to you just in general. And it can also be friends, like friends that have passed over that you were really close with. An ancestor can be a partner, like a romantic partner too, you know? And so I would say the first thing would be to disconnect from the idea that an ancestor is only a bloodline or that you must be or you're like searching for the bloodline, because it's not really searching for the bloodline. It's more so of a reconnecting with your soul group. It's just for whatever reason, we just use the term ancestor here because we're thinking about it from the perspective of being like a descendant, right? But like, let's say you're a descendant in this lifetime, but maybe in a previous lifetime, maybe you weren't the descendant. Maybe they were the boss in a previous lifetime. If they are your ancestor now, does that mean in the previous lifetime they weren't the ancestor? Like, is it a situation where you can have a life where they are and then there's another life where they're not? Or is it a situation where the souls just believe they just belong to one soul group, and then as they're moving through these lifetimes, they're just switching up the role every now and then, right? So ancestors are the group of ancestors that is actually quite large. It's a lot bigger than people think it is. And then in terms of like connecting with them, right? They're already there, right? So it's less about like this need to like find them, and more about an understanding that they've never left. And the reason for that is because, okay, I'll take myself, right? When I leave this planet, right? When I go back to being an ancestor, you think I'm not going to see about my descendant? I can't go to jail from the other side. I'm just saying, right? And they do the same thing. So they're actually always there. They're always sort of hovering around. They're always sort of in like their like protective mode because you're one of theirs, right? And so anyone that is connected to you in terms of like the soul group that you are a part of, they are part of the ancestors, and they're already looking out for you just in general. So it's more so a matter of like opening up to like that idea. So you're open to the communication with them, and then go into it from the perspective of like, hi, let me introduce myself, and hi, what's your name, right? But like I always, people who are adopted, those are really interesting cases because there's like two sets of ancestors, and really it's not two, it's part of one soul group. But the way we as humans conceptualize it and like categorize it, there's like two ancestral groups. You have your group, which is what we would call like the bloodline, right? But then there's also like the next group, which is like the soul's chosen family, right? So when you incarnate, it's like choosing multiple families. And so you're choosing multiple lines. And so then like you have multiple groups, you have multiple soul contracts, and multiple souls that you're working with, right? It's just for whatever reason, the human brain, we have a tendency to like put each one in a box, and then we feel like it's all separate. But we got to remember that the rules are not the same, right? We're working with the rules of metaphysics. It doesn't follow human logic. So it's not going to follow like human categorization. It doesn't fit into a box. It's a lot more fluid, right? Because if we didn't allow for fluidity, then like we don't allow for our soul to have that experience of being a mother to one person in one lifetime, and then like being a best friend to that same person in a different lifetime, right? We don't allow for that fluidity, right? With like the human thinking. And so it's actually like all one thing. It's all one group, right? And they're always there because you're one group. And so a soul group is going to look out for each other because a soul group has soul contracts that are intertwined with each other. And you can't complete the contract if you're not working with each other, and then therefore not looking out for each other. So you kind of just, so they're there naturally, right? So I would say just approach it from the perspective like you can do a meditation, and then or you can do it, in your sleep in a dream state, right? Because dreaming, that's like the deepest form of meditation, right? And you can set the intention of like, I would love to meet you again, right? Or like, help me remember who you are. I want to remember you, right? Help me remember our relationship. What's our relationship to each other? And you can ask them these questions and set these intentions for them to sort of help you out with that, because the communication with an ancestor, with a spirit guide, it's two-way, right? It goes back and forth. And so they're just sort of there waiting for you to be ready, right? But when you feel like you're ready and you would like them to also help you out, you can ask for that. Like you can ask for help. You can tell them to be a bit more bold, show up more. If you feel like you can't hear what they're saying, maybe you feel like you're not clairvoyant, you can ask them to send you symbols, right? And so what you can do is like you can like write this down in like a notebook as you're like processing it, but you can even be like, if you were a sister in a previous lifetime, right? Show me a shooting star, whatever you want the symbol to be, right? If you were my best friend in a previous lifetime, show me this. And so you can set what the communication is that you want it, what you want it to look like, and then have them move that way, because part of the issue too is that like when we're communicating or we're speaking with spirit, like because we have like this gap due to it like being another realm or like a different density or whatever, it's like communicating on a radio with static, right? So like when that happens, or like remember, for all of my really like hard millennials, right? Or anyone older than that, when like we had like TVs that wasn't digital. Remember there was a switch where we went from being like analog to digital, and I forgot what day it happened on, but it was like you no longer needed bunny ears, right? Or like an antenna. But it's like that antenna that we would use on a TV, and then like as you're tuning it or as you're moving the antenna, you would catch one word, but like not catching a whole sentence. Like that's what's happening when you're communicating with spirit, right? So you can catch a word, but like not catch the whole sentence. And so sometimes it's not convenient or efficient or effective to always try to rely on words. And so that's why it's good to like come up with different methods with your spirit team to communicate, like developing a symbol language, for example, setting the different symbols of what they mean, so, so they know, and then they can communicate with you in that kind of way. Some people, like, you can be like, hey, if you were a grandfather, send me a ladybug. Come as a ladybug, come as a butterfly, maybe a yellow butterfly. And you can be really specific about it. Let's see. I do feel like I'm always missing signs and messages. If you feel like you're missing signs and messages, tell them to send it again. Send it again, right? Like I said before, I have a, if I miss it the first time, send it 3 times rule with my spirit team. Tell me 3 times, send it 3 times. And I don't mean like subtly. I mean, like, I need you smacking me in the face with it. Like, if I missed it, like, send it 3 times, like a bowling ball type thing, And so, and they do. So, how was your attunement process? Do you feel different? I do feel different. I do feel a lot different. The process, though, for me, it was rough. It wasn't, and I still have to do my level 2. So, it's going to be another whirlwind, but it was rough for me. I think part of what happened was that I forgot that I got attuned, which is, it may sound silly, but after my attunement, like there was like a 3-day period, and then I went like back to living somehow, and I forgot that that's what I had did. And then suddenly I couldn't eat the same foods, and then I was like having like became really sensitive. I became really sensitive to like things on my skin. I would like break out in a rash, couldn't eat certain foods, it would make me sick. And then it took 10 days for it to like kick in full force. And then at that point, like I could see and hear everything. I was so psychic. I was like, woo! So yeah. But the process of like getting there like wasn't fun. And then I had a situation like medicine now is something I have to be really mindful about taking. Whereas before I wasn't someone that was sensitive to medication. I could pop it. It was not a problem. But like now it's a problem. It's a problem. Like I'm allergic to things now. And I wasn't like allergic to things before. But my body's like, no, that doesn't resonate. So yeah. And then I found that out, unfortunately, with taking medicine. I got prescribed a new medicine when I took it, and then that almost took me out. I almost ended up in the ER. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. I was like, I have never had a reaction like this before. So we are adjusting. We are adjusting to like what is in alignment and what's not in alignment anymore. So like one thing too that's changed, I now eat broccoli raw, like chips, like a bag of raw broccoli. And it's a craving. It's not even like, oh, I need to get my vegetables in. It's more of like, what would be so good right now? Broccoli. Yeah, and that was not the case. I never had that. But like broccoli, vegetables, raw vegetables, I just eat it like chips or candy. And I just gravitated to it. It was so interesting. Oh, I'm happy to see you too. Let's see. Huh? Okay. What is attunement? What is a good, do we have any Reiki master teachers on here? What is a good, because because with me, I'm now a practitioner, but what I am not is a master teacher, right? I don't have the ability to teach that type of stuff when it comes to Reiki, at least not yet. And I actually really want to respect the practice of it. So if we have any master teachers here, please master teach us and then drop it in there, like the official, because there is an official like definition to it. And I want to honor that while also Googling the official definition to it. Because I'm like that. Okay, I got it. So according to Google, Reiki attunement, also referred to as initiation, is an energetic process that opens up your energy field so you can be a channel for the Reiki healing energy. A Reiki master gives the attunement. It is not something that you can give yourself. I hope that's helpful. I hope that's helpful. Are you no longer offering a spiritual advising service I was planning to sign up for after the holidays and can't find it on the website anymore? Did I miss my chance? I am offering it. Is it down? Is my website down? Let me look at that. Let me not. Really? Hold on. I'm going to drop the link in the chat for you because it's up. At least I can see it on my side. You did not miss your chance. There you go. There you go. You are so welcome. All right, so while we're waiting for more questions to flow in, I feel like I almost just said I had a bone to pick with you guys. It's not really like a bone to pick. It's more of a just, like, we've got to pull it together, seriously, before going into the new year. Because and I'm meeting a lot of people too that just have like a lot of hesitancy. And what I've been noticing that I've been saying to people a lot is take that thing that you have, like whatever that idea is, and go bigger, right? Whatever you feel like you want to do, you want to accomplish. If there's like a vacation that you want to have, or like if there's something that you feel like is like a milestone for you, it's important for you, it's a goal. Like what's coming across like spiritually is like there's this idea that it needs to be bigger, go bigger, and a sense of right now it may feel like it's a big dream, but you can dream bigger, right? Almost so much that you got to go big enough. And I say this where like you feel like you want to vomit, right? Like push it so far out where you're like, okay, I'm hyperventilating, right? Like you should feel like you want to vomit. Like that's how big you need to go. Because in essence, like what we have or like whatever that milestone is, it can be bigger for you. It can be more for you. It can have a higher payoff for you. It can bring you more opportunities. It can bring you more money. It can bring you more love. But in order to like open the floodgate, you just got to go bigger. And sometimes like we place this limitation on ourselves that like, okay, like this is fine, but like, and like if I try to go bigger than that, either I'm asking for too much or I'm doing too much or it is too much. Sometimes maybe it's a feeling of like it costs too much, right? And so what happens is that we then like impose these limitations on ourselves and then we don't go bigger. But if we are creators, right? If we're the one that is like weaving this cosmic story, because there is fate and then there is destiny, right? And what a lot of people do, we have a tendency to mix the two up and like use them as synonyms, right? Whereas like fate is something that happens to you and destiny is something that is decided by you. And as metaphysical beings, we work with destiny, not fate. We're the ones that are deciding what we're doing because we have the awareness to know that we create, right? But what's happening is that a lot of people are surrendering to fate, right? We're looking at our history and the things that have happened in the past, and we're looking at things that we felt like didn't work out or didn't work out as well as we thought it went, or all the times we felt like we got rejected, or all the times we felt like there was a no, or like whatever. And we're using that as a way to like justify that, okay, well, this is just what life is. Life sucks, life is hard, life is this and life is that. And life can be hard, but life is difficult when you are surrendering to fate as opposed to writing and creating your destiny, because that's what creators do. You create it, right? And so when life gets hard and you feel like it's difficult, that means that is alerting you and letting you know that you are now in a place of resistance. And it can be in anything, right? You can be in a place of resistance in your family. And being in resistance in your family, it doesn't necessarily mean that like all of your family has to exit your life, right? Maybe the house is too small and you're living on top of each other, and then the energies can't disperse the way it needs to disperse, right? But there's something in your life where energetically you're now in resistance, right? And so, but that happens when you are surrendering to fate. Because let's just run with the family thing, right? So like, let's say there is resistance in your family. Is it that you're living too like on top of each other? Is that like something that could be solved? Right? Could you like not live there? For a lot of people, right, relationships with the family get repaired when there's space. When there's space for people to be their own individuals, when there's space to think, where you have a space where that you can go, where you can decompress from an argument that you have with your family, as opposed to when everyone's living on top of each other, there's no space for the energy that's created to then disperse, right? And so that can create situations where you're just like not in alignment, right? But then sometimes what we do, we just go, oh, well, there's no other way. There's no other choice. And then we surrender to this idea, therefore surrendering to fate, as opposed to being like, no, I'm actually going to rewrite the story here. And we're now going to write destiny. And I'm going to choose that path to live by. And like, I love you because you're my family, but our current setup isn't working. So what we're going to do is change our current setup. Therefore, it works because I love you. Right. And so going into the new year, just because of the energies of the year, it's just a collective 8-year. It's a year that's going to move fast. It's a year that's going to have a lot of opportunities in it, right? And it's a year where you're going to have an ability to just like seize, just to take things that you feel like belong to you, to take things that you want to have. And because of that, that is going to require that you choose to live by destiny as opposed to choosing to continue to surrender to fate. I mean, you can do with that information whatever you want. I'm just saying, just saying. I don't run your life. Thank you so much for the tarot videos. You are so welcome. To be quite honest, I'm surprised that they're still like sitting in the algorithm like that. I didn't think anyone was really going to watch them. I said before, making those videos was like an act of defiance for me. I got sick of seeing, like just seeing behind. So at that time when I hadn't made, like now you can go on the internet and it's you can find resources and you can find free resources. But at that time, you couldn't. Most of the resources behind tarot were behind a paywall. And I had actually paid for a lot of them. I had tried a lot of ways of like learning how to read it, going through the paywalls. I had gone to so many different like in-person physical tarot classes and had worked with different like tarot teachers that had different like styles and like teaching styles and ways of explaining it. And then one day I just felt like it was just all subpar. Then I was like, I can do this better for like free. And if this is a tool that can like really help people come into their own truth, then like, damn it should be free. And so that's what I did. And so I am always really excited to see that it is serving its purpose. and then it's like fulfilling its original intention. I think that's so cool. How can you help progress one's abilities? I have always taken on everyone's feelings and energy. How do you embrace and control your own emotions and stuff? So it'd be helpful. How can you help progress one's abilities? So it'd be helpful, one, to know what abilities you have, right? Because it's a little bit different for different things. But you take on people's feelings and energies, and how do you embrace and control? So when you're coming into your journey, that's actually really normal. It's really normal to take on people's feelings, and it's really normal to take on people's energies, because you're learning energy itself. And part of the beginning phases of that is understanding how to decipher, understanding how to discern, understanding what's what, where it belongs, where it's coming from, understanding things like, what is energy that I picked up from a person, and what is energy that I picked up from a TV, right? Because it's all electromagnetic. And then the more sensitive you become, like, for example, there are people that can't be in rooms with a lot of electronics because they're always buzzing, right? But in the beginning of the journey, you're looking around thinking something is wrong. Did I pick that up from a person? Not realizing, like, no, you, like me for now, right now, I'm sitting in my home office and I'm looking at what's plugged in. I got a TV plugged in. I got a printer plugged in. I've got this laptop plugged in. I've got an extra monitor plugged in. I've got a mic plugged in. My phones are plugged in. I got wires everywhere. I've got air fresheners plugged in. Like, if you think about the amount of interference is happening to you at all times, and the way that you're just being bombarded at all times, yeah, right. And so what you're doing is learning how to decipher between what's what, what's yours, and what's not yours. Eventually, what happens with natural progression is that you just become better at understanding what was your energy and what was not your energy. Now, an exercise that you can do for this is whenever you're going about your day and your feelings change abruptly, meaning maybe you were just neutral and then suddenly you're happy and there's no trigger or catalyst, right? Or maybe you're happy and then suddenly you're angry, but there's no trigger or catalyst, right? Whenever that happens, tune into yourself, take a minute, stop, and then say, okay, what is mine? Use that as a time to be consciously aware of what's mine. And then say, what does not belong to me? Okay, right now I'm suddenly feeling angry. Why am I angry? Is it my anger? And go through the work to figure out the answer to that question. Is it my anger? I don't know. Well, did something happen that would make me angry? Well, no, nothing happened. Was something said that would have made me angry? Well, no, nothing was said. Did something occur that would typically trigger me in this particular circumstance? No, nothing would really do that. Then at that point, it's probably not yours. And then you can release it, right? And the way you would release it is simply through intention, by saying, thank you for showing up. You don't belong to me. Bye-bye. And then just release it and let it go. For me, how do I control my own emotions and stuff? This shit ain't mine. It's not my problem, right? I'm not taking your emotion with me because it's not my problem. Granted, are you going through something? Maybe. But does that mean I have to now go through what you're going through because you're now going through something? No, it's not my problem. And so it's not, so for me, it was one of those things where I had to recognize that, okay, I may have these abilities or whatever. I may be heavily empathic because I am an empath, right? And I cry at the drop of a dime. I really do. But one thing that comes with that is a responsibility. And one of the responsibilities is to be able to discern. When I say is especially when you are empathic, part of the gift allows you to understand where other people are coming from. And that's a beautiful thing, to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, right? If you are someone that wants to do spiritual work with that gift, then you understand where someone is coming from in order to facilitate where they're supposed to be going. And that's why you get the information, because background information helps. It helps in this line of work, right? But it is not meant for you to then go and feel. Everybody has their own journey, right? And one thing that the majority of people don't like is for other people to feel sorry for them. Most people can agree with look, I know I'm going through a rough time right now, but don't you feel sorry for me? People don't like that. People don't want you to feel bad for them. right? People have their own sort of sovereignty when it comes to that and their own independence and trying to figure it out. And people feel like if I need your help or want your help, I'm going to come and ask you for help. But if I didn't ask for all that, then don't do all that, right? And so it's more so about just going, it's not mine. It's not mine, you know? And that's it. And once you acknowledge that it's not yours, you can let it go, and you let it go by intention, by like mentally being like, it's not mine. So why am I carrying it? Why am I carrying luggage that I didn't check at baggage claim? It's too heavy. And it costs a lot of money, you know? Thank you, Crystal. Reader, I still go back to watching Knowledge About Tarot. That's so awesome. Been told I'm a healer and an empath by many people. You probably are. So there's this thing that's happening where there is a, what word did I use last time? It's like a tap out. So there are spiritual teachers, healers, workers, whatever we're calling them, right? Who have been like working in this space for a while. And when I say working, I don't necessarily mean that you're like out like working as like a professional psychic. You can be doing this work and like work in healthcare, right? Like a lot of healers end up in healthcare. A lot of healers end up working in hospice, things like that, right? And so like, or a therapist or some kind of coaching, teaching when you're working with young souls, right? Getting them to wherever they're like they need to be in order to prosper in life. So there's a lot of ways where you can actually be fulfilling this work without it being like cookie cutter, like I'm a professional psychic or I'm a professional tarot reader, right? But there's a tap out that's happening collectively where the people that were like actively working in that energy have gotten tired. And so they're like kind of tapping out. And what I'm sensing is that they're actually going to go pursue other things, right? So it was like, okay, this was great. You know, like I fulfilled my soul contracts, however many that was, right? Now it's time for me to go do work that's a bit more selfish for me, where I can now go, you know, fill my cup. And so a lot of them are actually leaving their healing modalities or whatever it was that they were doing to just pursue other interests. And so there is this calling that's happening. A lot of people are actually being called at the moment, and they're now actually coming into the space. And it's almost like them picking up where everybody else that are leaving this space left off. So yeah, I'm actually seeing a lot of people be called at the moment. It's actually quite interesting to run in them, because I am a part of like a lot of metaphysical spaces. And the most beautiful thing, and it's something that I've always been in awe by it, and I feel like I'll probably always will be in awe by it, is when I meet someone and they come up to me and they go, I don't know why I'm here. I don't know what any of this is. I don't know why I'm here, but I felt like I was supposed to come, and then I wasn't going to come. But then something told me that I needed to come, but I don't know what told me that I needed to come. I just felt like I heard this voice, and this voice said I need to show up. So I showed up, and now I'm here, but I don't know why I'm here. And then what is this? And like, I've never done meditation before, but like, I'm here for like a guided meditation. I don't know what I'm doing. There's like this thing, there's just this thing that happens. And then they always finish it with, I know this sounds crazy. And I'm always like, it doesn't. It doesn't sound crazy at all, actually. But there's been a lot of circumstances like that happening recently. So you're just being called. Good morning. What? Where do you live? Because it's good night where I'm at. Where do you live? Hey, do you believe in remedies like putting honey, lemon, and what to do together? Okay, hold on. Honey, lemon, and what know together to bring back a toxic. Okay, hold on. I never do that to my clients, but these remedies have such. When you say remedies, are you talking about magic? What is it? Is that what we talk about? We talking about magic? If so, I do. You talking about voodoo? Hoodoo? You gotta help me out. But whatever it is, I do believe in that, and I also do it myself. And I actually will be teaching a class, a candle magic class, starting in the new year, where you will actually be able to like and this, and it'll be in person. It'll be like an in-person class again for all of my people that live in Atlanta. But yeah, where you will actually be able to make your own magic candle and then go home with it and like light it on fire. And if you want, say a spell, and I will teach you how to do all of that. Right. So I'm really excited about it. I did the class a few years ago. People loved it. And then I put it down for some reason, but now we're picking it back up. But yeah, I do believe in remedies, and anything can do anything. So, because really what it is an intention. I'm trying to, I need something. I need something. Okay. So let's take this, right? Some people would take this and they would look at this as a remedy, right? For cleansing, for warding evil, whatever. And for that, it's a remedy. But what it's doing, it's not necessarily always the item itself. Now, the item itself can help, and the item itself will have properties, but what it's doing is the intention. It's setting the attention, and it's also concentrating and directing your energy in a certain way, right? So if you think about a wand, and I have a wand. I don't know where I put my wand. Because I think it would be easier to demonstrate this if I knew where I put it. But okay, so take a wand, right? And think about like anybody that like likes Harry Potter or watched Harry Potter. Throughout the entire series and even in the books, there's always this thing where the wands don't work right by themselves or with the wrong wizard, right? They just don't work right. The wands themselves don't carry the power. They don't carry the magic. The magic is from the wizard itself, right? And it's the wizard that is directing their energy and their magic through the wand into whatever thing that they're blasting, right? And what it's doing is concentrating what you have. It's concentrating the intention. Because even when you watch the movies or you read the books, right, there's this whole portion where there's like training on like how to use a wand, right? How to say a spell, how to take your intention, concentrate it, direct it in a way that's so precise that it goes to the wand. And the tip of a wand is that final point of where it's supposed to go, right? Like the wand is a finger, for example. That's why people don't like it when you point in their faces, because when you point at someone's face, that's intention flowing from you to that person, and it's rude, right? And so any kind of remedy is doing the same thing. So if you are lighting something on fire, you have taken your intention, you have clarified it, made it precise, put it into something, like how you would put it into a wand. And by setting it on fire, you're releasing it. And then when you take something like honey and lemon, right? Things like that have properties because it's in the collective. Like when you think about honey and lemon, you can give honey and lemon to somebody who has a cold, right? Like that's something that's basic for a lot of people. Oh, you got a cough? Let me make you some tea with some honey and lemon in it, right? That's because as a collective consciousness, we have taken this thing, decided as a collective consciousness that this is the intention it now holds. So think about the amount of power in that, because the amount of people that's required to do that through generations, because it's a generational thing, right? And so we have therefore taken a collective energy or a collective intention, made it so precise, boiled it down, directed it into something that now those things have those properties, right? And so like putting in like lemon and honey, like, yeah, they have properties. Basil, right? If you want to call it a remedy, because I still feel like we're talking about magic, but we call it remedies. Remedies are cute. Like basil is like a holy herb. You can do anything with it. Basil is great for money. Basil is great for love. Basil is great for protection as well, because it's like a holy herb, right? Yeah. And then it says back to a toxic person, not together. So, okay, what I'm thinking you're saying is not letting a toxic person back into your life. Hold on, I'm trying not to judge. The reason why I'm trying not to judge is because I'm from Queens. When I don't like toxic people, I don't use honey and lemon. But not everyone's me. Not everyone's me. Honey and lemon for a toxic person? I don't know. You don't want to go stronger than that? You setting it on fire? What are you doing with it? A toxic person? You can just light a black candle and call it donezo. If you want to get rid of a toxic person, you can light a black candle and call it donezo. Take a toothpick, and then like scratch their name into it, light it on fire, let it burn down. Don't blow it out. So if you want to go to sleep, for example, and then you're like, okay, well, I still have this candle burning, right? Don't blow it out. Find something to like snuff the flame. And then when you're ready to relight it at a different time, come back and relight it, but you want it to burn all the way down, right? And the reason why you don't blow it out is because how many of you have blown out a birthday candle and the wish came true? Oh, wait. Mm-hmm. Beta says I just leak it. That's okay. I cry all the time. I cry all the time, like literally, and it's like sweet stuff. You can say something so nice to me, and I will just well up. Like I cry all the time. How can I help my spouse understand his spiritual gift and knowing what the gift is exactly? He could speak with his ancestors and says he always hears the chatter of people. I joke that he's a warlock. Maybe he is. Okay, so the question that I have for you is, does he want to understand? Like that's the first thing. Like is he interested in this or is he resistant to it? That's the first thing. Right? Because if he's open to it, well, if he was open to it, you wouldn't be trying to figure out how to get and understand it. Is he open to it? Are you still here? Tate Parks, are you still here? I need to know that. Is he open to understanding his spiritual gifts, right? I am someone that really like, if someone is not open, you leave it, because this is one, it's a personal journey. It's a very, my nose is running. Where's my tissues? Okay. Excuse me. It's cold. It's such a personal journey that requires courage and someone's willingness to fight through fear of the unknown and things that they cannot explain, that to bring somebody into this world when they are in a place of resistance is not healthy for them, right? Like, could you imagine like having one reality and then like one day you wake up and like you're seeing spirits? Like that's terrifying, right? And so yeah. Okay, he's open, no resistance. Okay. So is it more so, is he confused? Is he confused about what's happening? Is it trying to get him the right explanation for things? Is that what it is? Diana B, you inspire me. Diana, listen. You don't understand what compliments do to me, right? I get real gooey, right? Thank you. Thank you. So sweet. I really appreciate it. And like now I don't even know what to say. I feel embarrassed. You're from India? Oh my God. Oh, that's why it's morning for you. Okay, while I wait for Tane Parks, we'll go answer another question. How do you hear your clear audience at will? Oh. Okay, so much about anything that you're doing spiritually, psychically, or whatever, at will is choice. It's I am hearing because damn it, that's what I said I'm doing, right? It's less about, there's no like magic prayer or like invocation or spell. It's choice. It's this is how I'm doing it. I don't care what you have to say about it. And this is what it shall be because I said so. It's kind of like that. So that's like the attitude it is. And so when I hear it will, I'm like, hey, I want say something. It's and I like talk to them. So it's less of, so I'm not sitting there going, okay, I'm gonna wait for a message. It's not a passive experience. Like the moment I'm ready to talk and I'm ready to hear, I start talking to them as if I'm talking to you. All right, I'm here. I'm ready. What do you got for me today? Before I start readings or consultations, I will a lot of times will say out loud, what do I need to know? I will refer to people if I want someone specific. Mom, and then she will respond, yes. And then when I respond with my questions, it's an active thing. It's a conversation, right? If I'm talking and I feel like I don't hear them, then I have a lot of times I'll say talk louder. I'll say, talk louder. I'll say that to them. I can't hear you. Say it again. I can't hear you. Talk louder. It's a conversation that you're having, right? Because spirit, a lot of them that we'll be working with, a spirit guide and ancestors, you're dealing with spirits that were incarnate, right? These are like real beings. And so what happens is we kind of get stuck because there's a feeling of other, right? There's them or there's them, and then there's us, and there's like this other thing, but they're like real beings. And so you talk to them as if you would talk to a sibling. You know them and they know you, which is why you're part of the same soul group. So you're talking to them. You hear them at will by saying, okay, I want to hear now, right? I'm just gonna do it now. And then you have like an active process of how you're doing it. I'm trying to think of like an example of like how you hear at will now, right? Ever go swimming, right? Or get on a plane and then your ears pop. And then there's like this split second that happens where you're like, I can't hear. And then you do this thing in your ear real quick. And you're like making like an active move to change that, right? Like, no, I want to hear. So let me, you start doing this thing, trying to like unpop it. And there's like this active ritual that happens to make yourself hear again. It's the same thing, right? You're actively doing it. If you want to do anything psychically at will, you actively move. It's not a passive thing. What people a lot of times they're moving passively, right? So they will sort of sit and they'll wait to see something, right? Or they'll wait to receive a message, or there's like this waiting. Whereas when you want to do it at will, that part you skip. There's no waiting. You go get it. You go seek it. There's like an active ritual, right? So for example, let's say you're scrying. Scrying would be like looking in a crystal ball, like, right? Like something clear. And instead of going, okay, I'm going to wait for this thing to give me a message, you're going in as a psychic detective and you're going, I'm rating, what's the message? What do I see? Right? Do I see anything on this side? Do I see anything on this side? Oh, that's cool. That caught my eye. What does that mean? You're going in as a psychic detective. You are looking for the answer yourself. Anything that you're doing at will is because you're like, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to go find it. I'm not waiting for it to come to me, right? I'm going to go do it myself. So if you're trying to hear at will, try to listen. Sit there and be like, what do I hear right now? What's occurring, right? You can do exercises. If this is something that you want to strengthen, you can do exercises like literally anytime you're in any environment. Let's say you walk outside, you can stop and then by will go, what do I hear right now, right? That's changing it from being a passive experience where you just hear birds because birds are chirping to now it being an active experience where you stop and consciously go, what do I hear right now? Okay, I hear a bird chirping. How many birds are chirping? Is it one bird? Is it two birds? Is it three birds? Do they sound like they're talking to each other? Or do they just sound like they're chirping on their own? Okay, so now that I figured that out, based off of the sound, how far away do they sound? Is it a tree nearby? Is it that tree? Are they in that tree? What else do I hear? I hear a plane. What corner of the sky is the plane in, right? And what you're doing is taking your hearing, which for most people is a passive experience, and you're now consciously choosing to use the sense at will, right? And so by doing that kind of exercise, doing it regularly, when you're trying to then hear psychically, it's the same process, right? All right, spirit team, I'm ready. What you got? Tell me what you got for me. And then you're hearing what it is that they're saying to you. If you feel like you can't hear, you tell them, speak louder. Can't hear you still, speak louder. And if everything that's psychic, it's your realm, right? We feel like, something, I don't really know where it comes from, where in society, we feel like it's just like this thing that's just not us, right? But we are active participants in the relationship with spirit because they need us as much as we need them. We're not on the same side right now. We're not in the same plane. And so they are willing to work with us in a way that is beneficial because they also too may have things that they need to, like they have soul contracts too, right? They have things that they're supposed to complete as well. And so it would behoove them to work with you in a way that works best because it makes it more efficient. So if you're saying to them, I'm not picking it up this way, but I pick it up this way, they go, okay, great. We're now going to do it this way because now it becomes like an efficient process. We've now streamlined something. So turn your practice into an active practice. Like seek to hear. Same thing with seeing. Seek to see, right? If you want to strengthen your clairvoyance, seek to see, try to see, like make it an active experience, right? If you are working with someone or you have a friend and like you have their permission, because like let's not be weird, you can like seek to, you can like, okay, I'm gonna try to figure out what color your aura is. I'm gonna seek to see that. I am going to have a moment where I'm just going to look in your energy field to seek the color. What is the color? I'm gonna go find it, right? Anything psychically that you want to do at will is because you sought to do it. It was you made a conscious decision that I'm going to hear now. I'm going to see now. I'm going to feel now. What do I feel right now? Okay. I walk into a new room, all these new people. What do I feel right now? Oh, I feel some anxiety. Why do I feel anxiety? Oh, because it's a party and no one knows each other. Okay. Cool, right? What does that mean? Is the anxiety because they feel intimidated by someone they're standing next to that they don't know? Is the anxiety because they feel excited? What does that mean? Like, go deeper. You're a spirit detective. Right? Like this is the whole fate and destiny thing, right? Where fate being something that happens to you and destiny being something that's decided by you. Like we're creators, right? And when we're dealing with energy, this is our energetic field. It's your choice how you want it to work. It's your choice how you want any spirit, be it a spirit on this side or that side, right? So a person or like a spirit ancestor or whatever, it's your choice how you want them to interact with your field, your energy field. It's not their choice. It's your choice. Okay, back to Tate Parks. He's open to resistance, not confused per se, but wants clarity because he says our kids will have similar gifts too. Interesting. Yeah, your kids could have similar gifts if that is something that is in their contract, if that's something that they want to do. But I will say, not necessarily all the time. I'm wondering though, do his kids like, do you have kids now, or is it something like in the future thing? Because sometimes kids that haven't been born yet, they'll come through like in a form of like if you're practicing mediumship, and they'll tell you what they've got going on. They'll tell you what they want to do when they are born. They'll tell you what they want their name to be. So I'm curious whether or not, like, did they tell him this? Is this something that he like picked up on and that he didn't know that he picked up on it? Because that would be kind of cool. He can speak with an uncle the way you speak with your mom, but also hears often others talking to him without requesting the conversation. Okay. And he's searching. Okay, and he is looking for understanding. Well, he sounds like a medium to me. What specifically does he need understanding on? Is it because he sounds like a medium? Is that all we needed? Is it more of like a how is it working type thing? Like, how am I hearing? Is it that kind of thing? Oh, do you think bringing a toxic partner back is a good thing? Now, you should know better to ask me that question. No. Why would we do that? Why are we doing that? Why are we bringing? No, we shouldn't be bringing anyone toxic back for nothing. No. Why? So you can mess up my life for what reason? And take my money? Absolutely not. We're not doing that. So I can also be an emotional wreck on a ball on a floor again. I've been there, done that. We're not doing that again. No. Do I think it's a good idea? Absolutely not. No, don't ask me that. No. Any tips for telling the difference between your negative thoughts versus your intuition? That's a good question. I'm trying to think. How do I deal with my thoughts versus my intuition? Oh, so the tactic that I've used, I say to myself, so I don't really battle between like negative thoughts and intuition, but I do have this thing where it's like, okay, was that intuition or was that my ego getting in the way? And for me, the way I go back and forth about it, I just say, does that feel like wishful thinking? Like for me, that's the case, right? Like, does that feel like wishful thinking? So like an example of this would be like, let's say like you're applying for jobs, right? And you have a couple of interviews and then you have one interview and then you're like, you know what? I'm going to get that job, right? Whenever that happens for me, I stop and I go, does that feel like wishful thinking? Do I feel like I'm wishing to get the job? Like, I think I did a really good job and I'm wishing to get it. And if I feel like I'm wishing, then for me, that's how I know that that's my ego talking versus a knowing. When it's my intuition, I just know. And it's a very like, it is what it is. Like, this is just what's going to happen. And I don't really know what else to tell you about it. It's a knowing. It's a really deep seated knowing. That's how it functions for me. I would say for you, what you could do is find like a probing question, like similar to how like when you're an empath and you're trying to figure out how to differentiate between energies that are yours and are not yours, and how a really good way of doing that is stopping and consciously saying, does this belong to me? Is this mine? Right? Maybe find like some kind of prompting question for you that you feel like would be helpful. Like for me, it's, is this wishful thinking? And then whatever that question is, use that every time you have a moment where you're like, wait a minute, is this my intuition or are these bad thoughts, right? Because what I don't want to say is, well, like your intuition would never sound like a bad thought, but like sometimes it does, right? So like, let's say like you're at a gas station, it's 11 o'clock at night and you're in a bad neighborhood and you're like, actually, I probably should get out of here. That may not be a bad thought. That may be some like real well-rounded intuition, but it may sound like a bad thought, right? So maybe try to find like that prompt question for you that'll help you go, that you will ask yourself consciously. For me, is this wishful thinking? And if it is, I know it's my ego. Oh, he recognizes something in the kids. Okay, really to put a name to what is happening, have a better idea of what the gift is, and then move forward. He's a medium. Tate Parks, he's a medium. That's what he is. He's a medium. Do you guys have any like practices, like grounding or protection practices? Because what's really interesting, because you said, did I read that right? That sometimes he just hears spirits talking. Where is that? You can speak with ancestors. It says that he always hears the chatter. Oh, he's hearing the chatter of people. He sounds like a medium. I guess my last question is, the chatter of people, are they alive? Because you can hear chatter of people that are living. You can hear thought forms. I can do that occasionally. I can hear people talking, like thought forms, like they're thinking really loudly. It's kind of annoying. So the chatter of people, are they alive? What are they? Do you hear a spirit in your own internal voice, or does spirit, your mom, have different voices? Yeah, so spirit has different voices. My mom has a different voice. They have different voices for me. Yeah. Different tones. So some are deep, some are not. The ones that I hear in my own voice are my guides. Now I hear my guides in my own voice, but like ancestors and stuff like that, people that have just recently passed over, I hear them in their voice. But it's different for everybody. Some people don't hear at all. Some people just, they get like pictures playing in their mind, like Polaroids. It's different for everybody. What's the difference between guides and other entities? I would assume that there are so many different things that are out there, but I have no idea about it. Can a non-guide contact you? Yes, a non-guide can contact you, but what I would say, if this is something that you're interested in and you're in a place where you're like, I know nothing about none of these things, the first thing I would do is get really clear on what I'm okay with talking to and like what I'm not okay with talking to. Like when I first came into this, when I initially started, my initial intention was nobody can talk to me. Not until I get a handle on this, right? Because when I first sort of came into everything, it all happened at once and it was really terrifying. And like I didn't sleep for years. I mean, for me, it just wasn't a good experience. It just wasn't pleasurable. And so while I was trying to figure out what I was experiencing, the intention I set was that I hear from nobody. And then slowly over time, that would get updated. Then I would update it with like, okay, I'm okay with hearing from my mother and my sister, but I have a door that they must pass through, and I change the lock every day. And for me, that meant if you're truly my mother and you're truly my sister, you will know how to break the lock. And every day I changed the lock because I didn't know what any of this stuff was. And so I wasn't like, oh, I'm open to, no, like absolutely not. Right. And then for like my mother and sister, the lock thing was like my way of testing them as spirit. Like, if you really are who you say you are, you can break through this lock. And then you make the lock with this intention, right? Like, no, you can't come in my house. Like, no, like, what are we doing here? Yeah, I wouldn't let you in my house if you were alive. You can ring my doorbell right now and I still wouldn't open the door. So like, what are we doing? Right. And so start there. And then like as you're learning, and like you get a better idea of like what's what, and you get a better idea of like what you're comfortable with, then you can sort of open up your field. You can open up your energetic field about like, okay, what is okay with you and what is not okay with you, right? But going back to your original questions, when it comes to like the difference between entities, a lot of the times, well, for one, there's not a whole lot of different. Spirit is spirit is spirit is spirit, right? We are all one at the end of the day, if you all boil it down. The difference between entities is actually a human construct. We as humans have separated them into different things, and we've separated them into different functions. And so based off of like what we perceive that they do for us, but it's not necessarily that there's like an other. Like if you were to talk to them, they've transcended this idea of other and like they're that, like that's a spirit guy and I'm an ancestor. Like that doesn't like happen. Right? That's us. That's breaking it up. Right? But like a spirit guide is a guide in spirit. And typically they were incarnate at some point in time. And they serve as like spiritual advisors, right? Guardians throughout this lifetime. And they can have different functions. A different guide, like a spirit guide can have a job or like a specialty. And the reason for that is because they were incarnate at some point in time. And so some of them are just good at certain things, right? Like I've said this before, like an example of this is like women right before they get pregnant or right before they give birth will sometimes acquire a new spirit guide. And a lot of times these guides, when they were incarnate, were like a doula or a midwife or a doctor or something like that. And so they are helping from the spiritual side to usher the soul through the portal. Right. And so they just have different jobs. Some spirit guides may have been like a really good friend or like a lover, right, in a previous lifetime, and you stick together. And so they just act as like a spiritual guardian, that they serve as kind of like the angel on the shoulder, right? Giving you tidbits on like what to do, what to like in life. Like they are a lot of times that spark of inspiration that seemed to come out of nowhere, where one time you had an idea or like to do something, and then like you're like, I don't really know what to do. And then suddenly you have an answer, right? That can be coming from a spirit guide, right? A different entity could be an ancestor. An ancestor is what that sounds like, someone that we as humans interpret to be a part of the lineage, right? That is a little bit difficult because ancestors can also be a best friend too, right? Because in different lifetimes, we incarnate as different things. So this lifetime, they may be an ancestor, right? They could be grandma, but in a different lifetime, they were like your best girlfriend ever, right? And so it's more so of like the function of what we perceive them to have. And so the main ones that people work with are spirit guides and ancestors. There are also angelic beings or archangels that some people work with. I don't work with archangels. And the reason why I actually never started working with archangels was just because I felt like there was just too many of them and I couldn't remember them. And that's like an honest truth, right? Like I tried at one point in time, but it was just too much information and I just wasn't able to retain it. But there are people who do, and it's really easy for them, right? Now, angelic beings, a lot of times are offering healing of some sort. They are not necessarily like and also protection. They can do that too, but it depends on what the person wants to work with, what energies that they want to work with. And like, that's like a personal decision. It's like a personal journey, right? Now, there are a lot of books on it. Like, so for example, if you are someone that is like, I think I'm really interested in archangels, but I'm not really sure. There is a book, and I don't know where all my books are, I believe it's called let me look. I think it's called the Encyclopedia of Angels or Archangels. And it's like, yeah. Okay. Is this it? Okay, here it is. I'm going to put it in the chat. The Complete Encyclopedia of Angels, a guide to 200 celestial beings offering help and heal and assist you in everyday life. So if that's something you guys are interested in. Oh, why isn't it going? Okay, it's not going. I'm just going to type it in a thing. Maybe they'll let me do that. Okay, there we go. Let me type. That's the name of it. So that's something that you're looking into. Yeah. Also, there's like deities too, right? Gods and goddesses. It's just the energy that people like to work with. Sometimes people will choose a certain god or goddess to work with because they like the energy. Maybe they're a protector, or they respect the energy or something like that. Okay, any book recommendations or online classes to understand spiritual gifts and spiritual contracts? Spiritual gifts are interesting because there's just so many of them. I would honestly say the first place I would point you is YouTube, and then just start going through a rabbit hole there, figuring out what resonates with you most, going to Amazon, and then picking one of the ones that pop up first, to be quite honest with you. When it comes to spiritual contracts, there is a book called, I think it's called Spiritual Contract Decoded. Hold on. Spirit, or is it Life Contract? Spirit Decoded. Your soul contract decoded. Okay. It's not letting me link. But I can put the title. That one's pretty cool because that one actually will tell you what your actual soul contract is and then help you decipher it, which is actually pretty cool. It's pretty hands-on. I like it. Okay, so Tate Parker said you're not sure about protection practices. Yeah, so when you are working with energy, right? This is not just like spirit, this is like people too, right? So when you're working with energy, you want to make sure that you are guarding your own energy first. There's a lot of ways that you can do that. There is like the tried and tested protection bubble, which is like when you're in your meditative practice, you can visualize or sense or feel, because not everyone has an ability to visualize, a bubble that is coming down from the heavens, that is sort of like enclosing around you, right? And you can visualize that as a protective bubble. And the intention is that you are safe and sound in this bubble and nothing can get in the bubble, right? And this bubble goes with you throughout your day or however long that you want to do that. You can also do that for your kids as well. So when you are making the bubble around you, you can also in the same time create like two little bubbles, right? And those little bubbles go around your kids. What I would do when I would do my protection practices, my visualization was angel wings. So like an angel coming down from heaven, coming behind me, and then the wings encircling me and like holding me kind of like in a hug. You can do that. Some people do it where they like visualize like a protective golden light or like a pure white light coming down from the heavens and then sort of washing over them, right? And the intention is that you are protected from harm, from sort of anything that you feel like you want to be protected from, right? And so that would be up to you. And when I say that, like what I mean is like, for example, sometimes when I get in the car, I do it to the car, right? To like prevent accidents and things like that, right? And so whatever you are searching for protection from, you can do it around that. From a mother-in-law, from a boss, right? Whatever you don't want in your field. Is the lock a question? No, for me, it wasn't a question at all. For me, the lock was a lock, like a padlock. The way I had visualized it was a padlock. Sometimes, and I would change it, right? Because the idea was that it would change every day. And so the lock would change. And so the lock that I saw would change. And so sometimes it was a padlock and they had to find the key. Sometimes it was like a combination lock and they had to know the code. And then the code would change, right? And so, yeah, but it wasn't a question. I can hear people who have passed in their voice, question mark. You can. Yeah, you can. Like people that especially when they have had like accents or they spoke a different language, sometimes you can still hear them in their language that they spoke or their accent that they had. Yeah, so when it comes to like to opening the door, remember it's your door. Like how everything happens is decided by you. It's not decided by spirit. It's your door, right? Like you can set a rule where they're not allowed to knock. You can set a rule where it's invitation only, where they can only show up to the door if you invite them there. Like it's your door, it's your energy field. Is it possible to know your soul contract? It is possible to know your soul contract. The book that I have right beneath it, the Your Soul Contract Decoded book, that's a good book for like helping to decode it. But yes, it is possible to know your soul contract. There's also a lot of ways outside of this method, which is a method that uses numerology. There's other ways that you can do it. You can find it in your birth chart. You can also find it by knowing your human design. There's a lot of ways to find different aspects of your personal soul contract. Yeah. And essentially what a soul contract is, by the way, is your calling, right? And so what are you called to do in this lifetime? What was that top purpose that you wanted to have? And sometimes you don't need the books to find it. Some people are fortunate enough to know what they feel called to do. So, but it's the calling, whatever you feel drawn to, whatever you feel called to do. And things too, a lot of the times it can also be things that you're naturally good at as well. I have intuition and I can heal people and I can hear people, but I'm new to all of this. Yeah, that's cool. You got to start somewhere. I'm so confused. You have to start somewhere. You start yawning big time. Yeah, their energy is probably overwhelming. Or to be more simple than that, they could also be tired, and you're picking up on that. Do you find it harder to get accurate readings for yourself in comparison to readings for other people? No, I don't. What I find hard is accepting the reading that I got for myself. I don't find it more difficult. I find me accepting that it is what it says it is more difficult. Like if I'm doing a reading and then a tower pops out, will swear on my life that like, oh, I didn't shuffle these good enough. Let me put that back in. We don't need that. So that's what I struggle with, accepting the message. But typically when I do like a reading for myself, like I don't really need to use like cards or anything like that. Spirit will just tell me. So it's less about a reading and it's more about them communicating with me and telling me what's about to happen in my life. And then at that, and then that's also it's the same problem of me accepting what they just said, particularly if I don't like what they just said, right? Now, sometimes they say things and I'm like, oh, that sounds great. Yeah, give it to me. But then there are times where I'm like, I don't like any of that. Um, I ask my ancestors who I know have been around by showing me signs to actually show themselves to be or to speak to me clearly and audibly or in my head, but I never get that. I only get signs. Are you getting the message though? Because if you're getting the signs and you know that they're there, what's the point of the rest of it? Is it just bells and whistles? Because it may not be necessary. You know, we have to understand like the energy is difficult. Like think about the amount of energy that's required for you to speak to them, right? Because we are separated by a veil, right? If it's that difficult for you to speak to them, how difficult do you think it is in the reverse of them also trying to push through the veil to get a message to you? Sometimes it's just not efficient. Sometimes it's not even that they're like not doing it. It's just not an efficient way of communicating. And so they don't, right? Like signs and symbols is probably the easiest way to communicate. You're welcome, Tade Parks. That's not a problem. How do I get them to be a little more obvious to me? I usually get the signs through my living mother, who is basically a medium, but is afraid and doesn't realize it. How do you get them to be a little more obvious to you? Who and obvious in what way? Like, is it that you personally want to hear from them rather than getting the message through your mother? Is that what it is? Oh, you're afraid I should have just kept reading. I'm afraid I won't get the messages anymore when she's gone. I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. You know, you can train in mediumship, right? It's not like some people think that like some people are just blessed with it. All form of psychic anything is something that's trainable. You can train to be a psychic the same way you can train to do algebra. And the reason for that is because your spirit, right? Like, yeah, okay, your mother is talking to spirit, but you're spirit too. You're just spirit that happens to be incarnate at this particular time, but you're still spirit. So it's natural for you to be able to talk to spirit when that is what you are yourself. So you can train in it. Um, there is, if that's something that you're interested in, but you're like, I don't know what practices to do. I've got all type of goodies. There is the medium training deck that actually offers like they're different cards, they're different prompt cards, but the prompt cards have prompt like exercises on the back of them, right? And all of the cards are like that. And like it's a good training tool. And if you're like, actually, I do want to know how to do that, like while you're training, right now I am not offering any sort of training on mediumship. I may one day. I mean, people have started to ask me to do it, so I may one day. I'm just not doing it now. But there are people that will that will train you to do it. It's but it's talking to yourself, right? Like when we can accept that that's what we're doing, right? At the end of the day, again, like let's break this down so we don't have a breakdown, right? If you boil it all down, we are one. You're really talking to yourself. You are spirit. You just happen to be incarnate at this particular moment, right? And as a medium, you're dealing with the ancestors, right? And so it's all connected. And so if you can like wrap your mind around the fact that you're not reaching as far out to communicate with the spirit as far as you think that you're going, then it's a lot more like palatable, right? It's easier than what it is, than what it seems to be, is really what I'm trying to say. Like if we can accept the fact that like all these things that we think about it that may seem complicated is nothing more than us setting limitations for what's actually happening, then it's easier to do, right? Like so for example, like when you think about like babies or like young children, and like people and like young children are always, they're kind of creepy because they're like, oh, this spirit or this person in the house talking to me, and you're like, what? Or like you can see a baby in the crib and they always seem to be looking at something, but you don't know what they're looking at. They are closer to the veil because they just came through the door. They just came through the portal in their spirit. So it's natural for them to be able to see spirit. They're looking at their own, right? And so it's the same thing with communication. So, if you can accept that like your spirit, you're just talking to spirit and you can talk to spirit because that is what you are, then everything feels a lot more simple, right? So I think that's the first step of like just accepting that it's not as difficult as people think that it is. And then the rest of it is seeking to speak, right? So anything like psychic, anything, whether or not you're hearing or you're feeling or you're knowing or whatever, you're seeking to do so, right? So when, as a medium, mediums are seeking to communicate. They are seeking to talk, right? And so, like, if that's something that you want to do, that's something that you can be trained to do. And if you want some practices on like that you can do at home, then this is a good deck. Oh, that's not the top. The medium training deck. Is there anything that we can do to make it easier for them to reach us or communicate with us? They are communicating already. It's less about that, and it's more the fact that you probably just can't hear, or you haven't yet recognized the signs of like when it's actually happening. And the reason for that is because the matrix is really noisy. People talk a lot. Everything is really loud, right? We are preoccupied with our own emotions and our own feelings, what's going on in our own life, that when it comes to that, we're just not checked in. Like, we're just not there, right? And so it's less about them making it easier for them to communicate with you, and it's more about making it easier for you to communicate with them. And the way you do that is by starting by disciplining the energy. So a lot of times when people are coming into their psychic practices, they will find that a lot of the advice is to meditate, and to meditate for longer periods of time. And then sometimes in the beginning of the practice, you're like, oh, I just feel like I'm meditating so much, but okay, but like, what now? Like, I feel relaxed. That's really great. That's nice. But like, what do I do after that? Right. And so part of what meditation helps with is the disciplining of energy, of calming the energy down, of being able to differentiate between what energy belongs to you and what's not. It's teaching you how to manipulate energy, right? How to manipulate your frequency. It's teaching you discernment of energy is really what it's doing. Right. And so the more you're doing that, the more you're understanding the discernment, how to discern between what energy is yours, what energy is not, how to be able to control your energy, calm your energy down, set your energy aside, then it makes it easier to work with other energy. Right. And so when you're doing a medium and like as a medium and you're working with spirit, like the thing that is the most helpful is knowing how to set your energy over here so that you can receive the energy over here. If your energy is all over the place, right? The energy that's coming in from this side, it's harder to perceive, right? If you got a lot of chatter going on in your mind and one is communicating with you because they communicate primarily through thought form and feeling, but you got too many thoughts going on up here, then it's not that they're not communicating, is that it's occupied. There's no more space, right? And so things like learning how to center yourself, learning how to meditate, which disciplines all of that, makes it easier to receive the messages that are coming in. But if this is something that you're interested in and you want those messages, oh, they're talking to you. It's just that you just don't hear them yet because the energy just isn't disciplined yet, which is fine because that's just part of the journey. I think a mini series of videos for mediumship training on your channel would be a major hit. Okay, I will consider that. Thank you. Thank you. Mediumship behind a payroll. I'm deaf by. How do you manage very overwhelming energies by spirit? The buzzing makes me feel dizzy, lightheaded, and it makes it harder to communicate. The thing is, I don't manage. I don't do anything I don't want to do. If I don't like it, I don't do it. And for me, I don't like that energy, so therefore I do not work with it. I don't accept it into my space at all. I don't cope with anything that spirit provides. I'm not coping for shit. This is my side, right? I look at it from the perspective of like, this is like my realm. This is my plane, right? So we're working with my set of rules, and if I don't like it, we're not doing it. And so I don't necessarily have that. But in the beginning, I did. And what you can do is ask them to turn down the dial. So if it is feeling too intense for you, if the buzzing is too much, if the energy is too intense, I remember in the beginning, I used to feel the energy a lot in my chest, and it was just heavy and it was just uncomfortable because it's like a cosmic kind of energy. It's not like a human kind of energy. Ask them to turn down the dial. Or you can ask them to back up, right? The only person that will do that, or the spirit that will do that with me from time to time, is my mother, she used to be a smoker. And so when she's around, the house will fill up with cigarette smoke. And it's actually really funny because was it last night? I smelt it and it just wasn't going away. And I don't smoke and I can't stand to smoke. And I turned it to my husband. I said, "You smell cigarette smoke?" And he was like, "No." I was like, "Not even a little?" And he was like, "No." And I was like, "Are you sure? Because the house is on fire." And he was like, "No, I don't smell anything." And so with her, I will say, "Can you back off a little bit? Can you just like back up just like a little bit?" So she'll back off. So just ask him to turn the dial down a little bit. Um, what are your thoughts on shadow work? I think it's necessary. I think especially if this is a space you want to be in, it's really hard working in like the spiritual, particularly when you're dealing with people who everyone is going through something without going through your own shadow healing and your own shadow journey because the entire experience will trigger you. That's what it's designed to do in order for you to heal. And so I am a huge advocate for shadow work. Shadow work can be very painful, it can be very confusing, but as you start to unravel some of the things that are sitting inside of you, it creates a dynamic where you are more sure of yourself, you become more calm. It's not necessarily always that like you fix the problem, right? Or the trauma is now done or gone. It's more of a self-assuredness because you understand why. So much of what we're searching for in life is just the why. Why is this the way it is? Why did that happen the way that happened? Why am I who I am? Why did that person treat me the way that person treated me? It's the why. And when it comes to self, all those things that we don't understand about ourselves, the ways we react to people, things that trigger us, things that make us angry quickly, like the why is in the shadow work. And the more you understand why you are the way you are, the easier it is to sit in who you are and be okay with holding that power. It's not about being like perfect, and it's also not about being fully healed. But the thing about like not healing our things is that that is what leads to shame and guilt and confusion around identity. And when you know, things like shame and guilt and that confusion dissipate. And so it's healthy. And particularly if you are dealing with a lot of people who are on their spiritual journey, they are also going through, well, the journey, which is a triggering journey. And if they're triggered, because in the spiritual journey, we attract our mirrors, right? Like there are a lot of aspects of us just in this collective group alone that are mirroring each other right now, which is why we have an ability to relate to each other. And so when you're dealing with the spiritual, or you're dealing with spiritual people, we have a tendency to attract our mirrors. And if you haven't first looked at yourself in your mirror through shadow work, but then you come across somebody else who is the mirror, right? It's just not you just shouldn't put those two things together, right? Because in this journey everyone will trigger you. Everyone has something that either you dealt with already or that you will deal with. Okay, so mediumship, that is a hit. I'm gonna figure out how I would do that. That's what's been stumping me. Trying to figure out like how to teach it, right? Because when I came into my mediumship, I ended up I had a couple of teachers, and those teachers they helped me refine it, but I was never taught it. My mediumship kicked in via trauma. It was there one day, it wasn't there, and then the next day it was. It was like one day I had a life where like spirits didn't exist, and I was just like, oh, this was cool. And then like one day they all existed, and they all existed at one time, and I could see everything, and it was absolutely terrifying. And so mine, it just kicked in by itself. It wasn't trained. And I'm also in my family the only like practicing one. Like it didn't pass down through like my mother's lineage on my mother's side. I'm just is definitely just me. And then on my father's side, he thinks that he may have had a grandma that was kind of woo woo and that maybe I got it from there. But like it didn't pass down. So because of that, I didn't have anyone that had an ability to like help me. I just one day I didn't see, and the next day I did, and it was awful. And so I didn't go through a period where I was taught it. And because of that, it's a bit difficult for me to figure out how to teach it. But it's something that I have been mulling over for a while. So, but if you guys see like, if you guys are interested and you guys are saying that you are, then I will mull over it some more to see how that can actually be done. Meditation seems to be a huge foundational tool. Do you have tools, books, videos, etc., to start down that path for meditation? That to me, that's like the easiest one. Go to YouTube, type in guided meditation, find one that you like. So find a voice that you like and a music that you like and the intention that you like, and the intention will be in the title. It'll tell you what you're meditating for, and then do that. Guided meditation, but start with guided. Do guided first. If you are like coming into the meditation practice and you're just listening to music, it's your first, because then you're going to sit there and you're like, okay, well, what am I supposed to be doing? Then you're like, well, am I supposed to be thinking? I have all these thoughts. Oh my God, it's supposed to be the absence of thought. I'm not supposed to be thinking. And then you start thinking about the fact that you're thinking, even though you feel like you're not supposed to be thinking. And the next thing you know, that now your leg is itching and it's like a thing, you know? And so do a guided, have a guided voice that is guiding you through the meditative process. Start with guided meditation and just pick some that you like. There's an abundance that are free on YouTube. And that's where I would go. Have you heard about dark astrology? If yes, what is it exactly? I have heard about it. I actually don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. Anytime I see something that says like dark in it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like it's evil, but my spirit immediately goes, nah, not for me, not feeling it. You telling spirits to back off sounds like me saying out loud in my apartment, if you aren't paying rent or contributing in any way, don't be making noises in my house, scaring me for no reason. I used to do that. I had this apartment where the lights would flicker from time to time. And one day I got so fed up and I was like, unless you want to pay bills in here, I said, stop touching my motherfucking lights. And then I kid you not, the light flipped back on and it never flickered again. It never flickered again. And I was like, stop, that's rude. I hear nothing after I tell them off. So I guess my protection mechanism works. Yeah, because a lot of them used to be incarnate. So you tell them to back off and they go, all right. Like, all right, cool. Yes, like attract likes. Like energy attracts like energy. Yeah, my mediumship, it wasn't passed down. And if it was passed down, no one talked about it. Because, like, you know, my grandmother, for example, she was heavy in the church. She went to church every Sunday. And there was this running joke in the family that I don't know ever made it to her. And grandma, I'm so sorry. But there was this, she just said, I know. There was this joke. Oh, God, she's looking at me like, but there was this joke that like she went to church as much as she did because she thought she was going to hell. Oh, it sounds terrible now that she's dead. But I don't know why we were so mean, but there was this joke. Anyway, so, but part of me thinks that she had maybe a little bit of something. But, it was like an old school thing. She had an old school way of living. You didn't talk about it because at that time, if you did talk about it, you went to a crazy house. And so you just didn't do that, And so if they did have it, then I wouldn't have known. I know my sister, she had an interest, but she didn't dabble in the interest. And the only reason why I know she had an interest is because one day I said to her, would you judge me if I went to go see a psychic? And then she like kind of whispered and was like, no, I was thinking about seeing one too. And then that was the extent of it. But so that's how I know she has an interest. But like we didn't talk about it beyond that. And my mother was really intuitive, but we all just kind of was like, oh, mother's intuition. And then we just kind of left it alone. No one explored it past that. My grandmother, she threw a Bible at everything. And like, that just kind of was what it was. And, it is, it just is what it is. Merry Christmas, happy marriage. I need to go to bed. See you later. See you later. Thank you. And I was actually thinking the same thing because it's been 2 hours and I'm actually really tired and it's past midnight. And so if there is no further questions, I may leave y'all here and then take myself to bed, you know? Maybe we'll do one of these in the future. I had fun. This was the first one, you know? You are so welcome. You are so welcome. We're going to do this like an auction house. Any more questions? Go once. I recognize that people have to type. You're welcome. Going twice. And I'm going to bed. Okay, guys, we're going to leave it here. Have a wonderful holiday season. I'm saying it that way because I don't know what you celebrate. And be empowered. You're now making empowered decisions because during this time of year, people lose their empowerment. They feel like they got to do for others, and people are doing for, they feel like don't do for them. Everything that you do from this point forward until we get into 2024 is going to be things you want to do. If you don't want to do it, then you won't do it. And it just is what it is because we're moving empowered. All right, guys. Good night.